Oh, maybe.
And I'll say, okay. And
It says it's being sent there.
okay,
Is it there?
I do see that we're there.
Yes. All right. Well, welcome, welcome.
Hello,
Connection with Spirit.
hello.
I'm Larissa Russell.
And I'm Deborah Epstein, and it looks like we are live broadcasting.
I'm gonna
So,
believe you because I don't see it on my end oh, I do see it on the channel now. Okay.
yeah.
There we go.
Okay, good. Just takes a couple seconds, I guess.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yes. We are there now. So, we did not pre-prepare, which is how we used to do it. We did not pre-prepare a theme or a starter for today. We've done it that way back in the beginning, and then we started to have these conversations, and we always had something that came up. And then it was funny because I said to you just as before we were starting, it's come to me a couple times this week, and you were like, oh, interesting, because, and that's exactly what happens with us. So,
Mhm.
do you want to share what that was? If that's what we're going to talk about. If not,
Like all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, we talked about so many things.
we
We were
were
talking
talking
about
about
love.
love.
Yeah, we were
Love.
talking about
Yeah.
love. Yeah. Amongst the other things, right? And yeah, we were talking about love. And let's see if I can bring myself back to
Because you missed a
the
great
post.
conversation already.
I know. I was thinking while we were talking, like we should be recording this right
Well,
here.
we do.
So
It's just like
yeah.
we have to be out there, but we never know that that's going to be the good stuff.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But we can repeat it. I mean, gosh, because
Yeah.
it's not like, yeah, it's not like a script or anything. So
Yeah.
we were kind of talking about love, and we were talking about love in context of the, election and how it's getting heated out there, and there's also a lot of fear out there too. And one of the things I shared was, since this is coming up first, is that you have these two possibilities, right? And I'm not gonna be specific. I'm gonna say we have these two possibilities, and one we really, really want, and one we could be in love with, and one we go, oh my God, that's scary. That's really scary.
Mhm.
And if you're paying more attention to the possibility that you're afraid of, you're voting for that. You're on board with that because you're in the fear of what you don't want.
Mhm.
But if you're in the love of all of it, you're in neutral. And then this is what I do, is of course I have who I am going to vote for. Actually, I have already voted because
Oh, you.
I was
Everyone I've
able.
talked to has already voted.
Yeah, you could
Yeah.
I still have like the ability to do the mail in. And in Arizona, there was a ton of stuff on the ballot. So I needed to do my homework, and it was like filling out a form for a test. It was so much stuff to know and to understand. So I took my time and went through it. I don't think I would have, I could have done that and then brought my answers to the ballot box, but I kind of
Mhm.
like doing it this way. But
Mhm.
anyway, I was saying, um, I totally derailed myself. But so being in the neutral. So what I do is I hold the vision for the world I want to live in.
Mhm.
And of course I vote for who I want to vote, who I feel is aligned with that vision. But I don't go like that's the person that I think needs to win. I hold the vision, because whoever, there is the right person that is going to bring that vision into a reality. And in all actuality, it's not one person that's going to do it, it's all of us. Right. And so the more we can step into love, the energy of love, the neutrality of love, and, you know, I say work on loving it all, because we are human, and we'll talk a little bit more about that humanness part. But yeah, it's more about, I think, holding and connecting with the vision of how you want to see the world go. How do you want us to interact as a species? How do you want us to look in on the global stage, and all of that kind of stuff. So I think the more specific that we as individuals, because we make up the whole,
Mhm. Yeah.
so it's more than just your power is in your vote. Your power is in the vision you hold for the country. We all get to hold that vision, whether you are the person that is in charge of bringing that into fruition, you're part of the energy and the mind that's creating that vision. And so if that's what you're wanting, more love in the world, then, well, that's saying, right? Be the love you seek to see in the world.
And I love that idea of the how do you want to see your world, right? Not that that's new to me, but
Yeah.
when you look at an election, that's not what people look at typically. They
Yeah.
look at, this party versus that party, or how they're going to spend the money, but how do you want the world to be? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it seems very clear to me, but I can't vote in your election. So it seems very clear to me,
Yeah.
what would bring me closer to that.
Yep.
But then also this idea of being in love, and we are human, and we will talk more about that. Just a little teaser because,
Yes, we're going
but
to talk about being human. Stay tuned.
the the idea of being in love, when you think about people that evoke emotion in you, and for
Mm-hmm.
me, some of those people evoke fear in me,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And what they represent. But I still would not wish for them to be dead, or wish for them to be harmed, or maybe in jail, but not wish for them, but not
You will
because,
get what you deserve.
you know, there are consequences to the choices we make, usually. Rich white men, not always, but usually. And the idea that we can come from a place of love and still not like someone, or like what they represent, or like what they're bringing to the table, doesn't mean that we're not coming from a place of love.
Yeah.
That love is the collective humanity. How do I, and really, how do I want my world to be?
Yeah.
How do I want my world to be?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's not it.
Yeah. What's interesting is that you made me think of something. We were on a trail, this is probably maybe going back 2 years. Because if I think it's like a few months ago, it's probably been a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And we were coming off a trail, and I had asked the people if they wouldn't mind stepping off, and they had their dogs off leash, and I had mine on a leash, and I have my husband who can't see, and it's just a lot of mayhem for him to try to navigate
Hmm.
on a rocky trail.
Hmm.
So I always say, my husband's blind, and would you mind stepping off? Well, and maybe just controlling your dogs a little bit. They got so offended by my ask, and to the because they didn't need to, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, there is a law. They were standing actually right by the sign that says all dogs must be on a leash.
Hmm.
But apparently the husband worked for the park service, and he didn't have to listen to that. So, but then them, not literally, but he started to get upset and voice his upset to them
Hmm.
about certain things. And she turns around and she says, I don't like your energy. Such a Sedona thing to say. And I thought about, I'm like, okay, thank you. Have a nice day. And I walked on. But then the more I thought about that, the more interesting that phrase became, because I made her feel uncomfortable.
Hmm.
I made her uncomfortable. My husband made her because he got upset and, said something. And that turned into, I don't like your energy. And that's okay. But I figured we must have triggered something in them, right? They triggered something in us. We triggered something in them. And a loving thing to do would be to sit in what got triggered for you. Not, I could easily go, what a jerk. This is the human part of the conversation. What a jerk,
Hmm.
right? And blah, 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 right? Or I could go, this is interesting. She's making me feel a certain way, that I now have to justify myself or my existence or the fact that I asked for what I needed, blah, 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 right? And
Hmm.
bottom line, it was just, I let it go because I went, interesting, because I stood in my power and asked. I triggered something in her that she didn't like, and she related it to energy. She just didn't like how she felt because I asked. And I think that's an interesting distinction when we're talking about things that I like and I don't like. You know, I don't like it. What are you really not liking? I'm not liking how the situation is making me feel. I'm not liking what I have to see right now. I'm not liking it, what I have to look at right now. And it's so much easier to be honestly in the victim and going like, it's them and it's not me. I'm the victim here. She yelled at me. She didn't get out of my way when I asked her nicely. Right? But
Yeah.
stuff like that's going to happen all the time, right? we
Mm.
we are still in our humanness, but we can be coming from a place of love when we interact with one another. And this is a thing for me that like I think you and I have talked about it before, where I wonder like, why is it when you're doing the asking that you're the one that's the bad guy? Like, why do we do that to each other? Because we don't like, do we feel like convicted we did something wrong, so we have to make that other person wrong? Because I can't just simply go like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that I was in your way.
There is something about that, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking before we came on air about, that humanness and how, judgment is sort of that first reaction because we need to judge a situation for safety. So it's a core need, right? Safety.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And so we judge a situation. So then it's like, what do we do after that? And I know I often get my hackles up, right? And
mm-hmm,
but then it's like, what's the next step? And so it's like, can I bring it back down? Often it has to do with how they behave. And, but still, sometimes the angrier they get, the calmer I get.
mm-hmm,
It's
mm-hmm,
like, oh, this is interesting. I go into that. This is interesting. This is a very interesting reaction for this ask, or, and it's just exactly that. But our society has really become such a me society. To
mm-hmm,
ask somebody to step aside or to leash their dog or whatever, you know, let us cut in line or let us cut through, not even into your line, but just to the other side. And it's like, no, this is my space. This is
yeah,
where I'm going to stand firmer. It's a
yeah,
very
yeah,
interesting thing to witness. And then also ask, like, what is this? Right? And I usually, if it's my reaction, then it's like,
mm-hmm,
whoa, what was that about? Right? Not always
yeah,
in the moment, but
yeah,
definitely afterwards. What was that about? Why was I so triggered by that? Why was I so activated? Or why was I concerned about that? Now,
mm-hmm,
having an autistic brain, I'm a little bit constantly aware of things.
mm-hmm,
Judgment, being judged has been a thing my whole life. So
mm-hmm,
trying to fit in, I'm constantly looking for the way to fit in. And
mm-hmm,
sometimes I don't recognize it right away, but afterwards, definitely, it's like,
mm-hmm,
oh, was that the way I wanted to behave? That there was that. Why did I behave that way?
yeah.
Always asking those questions. I think it's such an important part.
Yeah, it's very interesting too, because as you're saying, like fitting in too. So, like, obviously, we're in this ginormous paradigm shift of consciousness, right? And so, a lot of us were born into this into this world knowing that we're here for this time of transformation. And so, what is changing is that the structures that don't fit us all, that never really did, that were our patriarchal and biased towards certain genders winning, where others are disenfranchised. And it's just a very uneven, unloving, I would say, unloving society. It's not coming from a heart centered place, it's
Yeah.
coming from an egocentric place and a dominant place. And so when you talk about like the need to fit in, and I think we all have that sense of I need to belong. So we weren't taught, like, we already do belong. We're inherently part of something. And so I think we're also learning and coming into the embodied understanding where we're embodied in the sense of living it out, right? Living out that I belong, you know, and I don't need to try to fit in. I already do, because my uniqueness, my way of looking at the world, the way my brain processes information is unique to how my soul needs to express at this time, in this dimension right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so the languaging that we're coming up with now is so very different, and it doesn't fit into mainstream. And then I'm kind of like, hallelujah, right?
Yeah.
But it's still a habit, right? We
Mm-hmm.
still have a lot to move through physically. It's physically in there, you know.
Yes.
um
Yeah. These things are
totally.
ingrained in us
Yeah.
because it's not just how we've been raised in this world, but it's generations of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so what has happened? How have we been expected to behave? What's the survival? And just as you were talking about, that fitting in, and knowing that our uniqueness actually allows us to fit in. One of the great things about the internet and the changes there, like, yes, we do, we fit in because we're human, right? But we can also find our people, the people who resonate with us,
Yeah.
that we couldn't do the same way, right? There is there is people for you somewhere. And one might be over here and one might be over here. They might not all be your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, we very much had to have those close people, had to be our people. So we would bend and contort ourselves. But we've
Mm-hmm.
never um, removed that layer. I mean, we're coming to it. I guess it's just fairly new if you think about it. The internet is my generation,
Yeah.
right? My
Yeah. And
kids were,
as you're talking, I'm like, you and I have never met in person,
yeah,
but
yeah,
we know each other so well,
yeah,
right? And it's almost like when I say that out loud, I'm like, yeah, we've never been in the same room other than through the vehicle of on
the
an online
internet, yeah.
connection. Yeah. Yeah.
And so having that,
Yeah.
and do I have a lot of that? Probably not even in my own building, let alone
The level of
definitely
connection.
not
Yeah.
in my own family.
Yeah.
So yeah, it changes things. And so as we peel back that layer of needing to fit in to
Mm-hmm.
right here
Yeah.
and feel into our uniqueness allows us to fit in with the people who resonate with us,
Mm-hmm.
which is so important. So important.
Yeah.
And if anybody has anything to throw it in the chat if you want to jump in with a comment or you have a question or, a thought on what we're saying, you
Yeah.
disagree, you agree, all of
Mm-hmm.
those things.
I like it. I don't like it.
You're wrong. No, I'm
You guys
not.
don't know what you're
You're
talking about.
wrong. I'm often wrong. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
But it's so interesting too, because I think about like the uniqueness, and to some of us I mean, we all have a unique view of the world. No two of us are alike. We can agree, we can
Mhm.
align, we can be in the vibrational, you know, uh, alignment, I guess, if you will. But we all are always going to have our unique way of processing the information through us,
Mhm.
of what we're seeing and how we're being in the world. But I think it's really important to understand that, and for a couple of different reasons, and I'm going to quote Carolyn Myss. I used to hate when she said this, but I'm like, I so get it. You're not special. You're not special. You are a part of a whole. You're an integral part of a whole, which makes you super important. But I think when she's talking about you're not special, it's what the ego does with that, right? I'm special because I can read energy, or I can see lights around people, or everyone can do that if you practice. Everyone. Some
Mhm.
people don't lose that skill. Some people come in with that skill. Some people develop that skill. Some people have learned to get out of their fear enough to be able to allow that information to come that way. Basically, we are receptors of information. All of it is data around us, and how we interact with that data is what is the uniqueness.
Mhm.
But we have it all available to us. All of it is available to us. And I
Mhm.
think when we started getting into like seeing someone doing that and going, oh, I can't do that, they're special. I'm not, or if I can do it, I can do this, but you can't, no, everybody can. And I think like, and we have had this conversation around art and drawing and all that kind of stuff. All of us have the ability to draw what we see.
Mhm.
We're just not, wanting to practice it. I mean, I didn't just pick up a pencil one day and can draw like what or paint like that. I mean, that takes practice to do that, right? It,
Mhm.
I don't actually know of anyone that can just whip out something without having practiced it. I guess there's virtuosos, but I mean, even they practice because they love doing what they're doing. And that's the difference, I think. If you
Mhm.
don't,
It doesn't feel like practice.
it doesn't feel like practice. If it's
Mhm.
like a chore, right? It's probably not where your soul's wanting you to go in that direction. Maybe there's another way available to you that's in more in a alignment with the expression of who you are as a soul in a body. But I
Mhm.
think, when we get out, it's that comparison thing, that's actually not loving to yourself either, right? Or loving at all when we start to compare. If I started to compare myself against Larissa, I mean, I probably would never want to talk to her because I'd feel bad about myself, right?
I feel like if you knew my life, you wouldn't, but no.
But that's the thing too, right? You have to know it from the
Mhm.
inside. Nobody's going to know what your life is like. That's the other thing, like maybe one of the downsides of social media, or maybe something we get to remind ourselves about when we're
Mhm.
looking at social media and someone's putting out there something that maybe you deep, 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 deep in your soul want to be doing, but you're not doing it yet. You see someone else expressing that and it hurts. And that hurt turns to jealousy and it turns to like, putting that other person down when secretly you just have this part of you that wishes it could
Really
get
wants
out
it.
there, that really wants to be out there. And I'm talking, my voice got a little more gentle because I understand like that's a pain, you
Mhm.
know, when for whatever reason you can't move through what you need to move through to put it out there in that way. And the whole thing is maybe you don't need to put it out there that way. Maybe it's something different. But if you keep running from the pain instead of stopping and loving the pain, right? That's going
Mhm.
back to love. Love the pain that you're feeling. Give that pain some love, breathe into it and let it talk to you. Then you might discover what it is that I'm going to say is your jam. So
Mhm.
it might not be that exact thing, you know?
And that's the part of the problem, right? Is
Yeah.
we don't know our purpose often because we're so afraid of looking for it. We're so
Yeah.
afraid of trying something. And we need to try things to be able to find out what our purpose is. We
Yeah.
can't just sit in a cubicle and go, "Oh, I don't know what my purpose is, and I wish I knew, I wish I could follow it." No, you have to
Mm-hmm.
go out and live life. You have to go and experience things to be able to find that purpose. It
Yeah.
doesn't just find you sitting in a cubicle.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look for it.
Yeah.
And some people get it much earlier in life. I think of that little 4-year-old clothing designer. He's 8 now, and he's got a whole clothing line. He and makes clothes for the stars,
Mm-hmm.
and just amazing. And he had a passion, and his parents were like, "Yeah, let's feed that passion."
Yeah.
And you know, not everybody has that, but as you grow and become an adult, you can do that for yourself,
Yeah. And that's
right?
the thing, passion. That's the energy, the driver, the emotional, like the feeling of passion about the thing that's expressing through you, right? So it's not necessarily that, you know, he was born on the planet to be a clothing designer. It might have been to express that feeling of passion. And that is just the vehicle that he can move that energy through, right?
Yeah.
So you can do that in an office if you know what your passion is. If your passion is answering phones and really great customer service, and you really love that, that could be that vehicle of expression for you, that you can put your passion into that. And it's more of like passion is the purpose, or love is the purpose, or, it's not so much, it really isn't about the job that you're doing. But if you passionately hate your job,
Chances are you're not following your passion then.
exactly.
And that's
you know,
scary. Like, I totally get it, right?
yeah,
I was back and forth for years because that paycheck versus on your own,
yeah,
and it can be really scary.
yeah.
But if you don't do it,
Hmm.
right? Build it, but you have to also experience things. Like,
Yeah,
how do you know that answering the phones and helping people customer service is your passion unless you've experienced other things,
right. Yeah,
right? So you have to have
yeah,
experiences.
yeah, or that, I always think of the Dorothy thing. Because, she's going through this whole big journey thing, and then she finds out at the end, like, oh, I had the power to do this the whole time. I just didn't realize it, right? So it's what really changed for her, not much. She just stepped into her own power. And I think that's part of this, that power of love that we all have within us. And
Mm-hmm.
how does that want to express? And if you, that's the journey you take. And then once you're on that journey, you may discover you weren't so far off the mark, you know? But I think too, the come froms of like, because even like for me, like, um, the work that I'm doing, I'm very passionate about. And I know that this is, how I'm expressing it is in congruence with my soul and what it wants to do. But
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, when I was worried about my finances, when I was worried about, where's that client going to come from and how am I going to do this, it was hard because the energy of where, I was operating from a place of fear or lack of not enough. I'm never going to get enough. Doesn't matter how good I'm doing right now. I'm never doing good enough. Right. So you can be in a place that you're meant to be, right? But you're getting the lessons that you need to also help you channel more of that passion through what you're doing. And maybe it's just tweaks of how you're doing it. And we were talking about that too before we hopped on the live, of like what's changing for me and like taking this little break. And I had to work through a lot of fear.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, to take the break, I had to get my back up against the wall to really feel like I got to take a break. And
Mm-hmm.
then in that time, like it's almost like a habit of like, I learned things, I want to share them, but then I keep getting the message from my soul, no, this is just for you right now. You're in the cocoon, enjoy your time in the cocoon. So I actually like feel like I'm physically learning how to take in relaxation, enjoyment, working at a slower pace, and not drive, 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 drive.
Mm-hmm.
That's the masculine stuff, push, that I've learned, right? But it's all coming from learning it from a fear of like, what if I lose my place, or what if so it's always about what if I lose something, or what if I'm not enough of something, and that's all fear based.
Yeah, yeah, it absolutely is. But
Yeah,
we've also been taught in this world to live in fear,
yeah,
right? Our government uses fear, our churches use fear, our media uses fear. Everything is fear-based, and so it keeps us in that fear cycle.
yeah,
So it is very difficult to step out of that fear cycle, and it takes a lot of work. It's
yeah.
not impossible.
Well, that's the initiatory process, like when you're talking
Hmm.
shamanically, right? You have to go through a rite of passage, right?
Hmm.
To look to learn. And it's also the hero's journey, right? It's the same thing as the hero's journey. And it's what we're doing is we're moving through the fears that were ingrained within us. And we have to take the journey. No one can do it for us. We can't go to the healer that's just going to take it away. We were talking about that too. Like
Hmm.
sometimes as a healer or a psychic, or
Hmm.
medium, you have to deliver the message as is. And, sometimes it's not accepted by the person that needs to hear the message.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Just as you were saying that, what flashed in is our medical system, right?
Mm,
Because we so want to it's so ingrained in us that just somebody give us the answers. So to go to a doctor and get a pill,
Yeah.
okay, we don't have to do anything. We don't
Right.
have to change anything. We don't have to do the exercise. We don't have to eat the better foods. We don't have to do the
Hmm.
healing work, the
Yeah.
internal work. We'll just go get a pill.
Yeah.
And that's how we've been manipulated in this world, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because people in power understand that. They understand how the psychology of humans work. And so then they just put those things in place.
Yeah.
And and then sometimes it backfires on them, We
Hmm.
have um, a continent of obesity. I won't even say a country because we're in different countries of obesity
Yeah.
because,
A world.
well, there's other parts of the world it's not nearly as
I
bad.
know their food is
Their
better.
food is so much better,
Yeah, actually
right?
has nutrients in
Yes,
it.
which we don't have.
Yeah.
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 And yeah, there's just so many things that, so then we go get another pill. And as I'm on this health journey right now, it's like every doctor I talk to, it's another pill. And it's like, or could we maybe do something different? But I have to fight for that.
Yeah.
Their answer is a pill for everything.
Yeah. 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 And yeah, the system isn't designed for that. And it's funny because like when I first started doing like healing work years ago, it's like I I think my philosophy was always kind of different about that, because we weren't, I only went to the doctor like when I had blood coming out, needed stitches, or I had something broken. And so it never occurred to me that when I had a pain in my body that I would go to the doctor to get something fixed about it. It just didn't occur to me to do
Hmm.
that. So, I was getting massage, I was getting energy work and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, maybe because my parents would go to the chiropractor too, which was like unheard of back in the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but anyway, that being said, I just never related to my body in that way, that if I had like a soft tissue injury or something like that, that I needed to go see a doctor about it. It, it might just be a me thing. I don't know if it was just the way we were brought up or whatever, but I just don't think that way. And so when I found the things that I found, it made so much sense to me that, a lot of the stuff that we create in our body is created because of our belief systems, because of the mind. And this is matter. This body is matter. And
Hmm.
it's a form of expression. It's, the soul created the body. The body is in the soul. It's not the other way around. It's not the soul. The soul isn't in the body, that it's like this container for it. It's like it's all around you, it's in you and around you and infused within you. And that, you know, the soul wants to learn lessons. So the soul could be creating this too,
Hmm.
and then here we are trying to, fix it because it's perceived as being wrong, when maybe it might be a vehicle for transformation, for your soul to be moving through this, or there was a karmic thing
Hmm.
that, there's so many variables as to why we're creating what we're creating in this physical vehicle, that we can't say it's because of this, it's because of the food you're eating, it's because of the way you're thinking, it's bad programming, it's, your mother, blah blah blah. It could be yes and all of that,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
because it's a non-linear system, it's fractalized. And we can't get away from the fact that we're woven into our culture, we're woven into the world that we all created, which is loaded with toxic thoughts, all kinds of toxin chemicals in the ground, in the water, in the air that we breathe. So it's a wonder that we all live through this.
Yeah. Yes. I'm just going to say yes. As you were saying all of that, and I'm like, it's very true. The thing, well, I truly believe that what we think, right, plays a big
Mm-hmm,
part in, but we don't know in this moment what our contract was when we came here. And
mm-hmm,
I believe in this, that we came here with a contract to do something,
mm-hmm,
to process something, to live a certain way. We brought these people into our lives, and in this moment, I don't know what that is.
mm-hmm.
And so I make judgments from this very human form on what that I think it is, or, why people do things that they do. But I truly don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I could have asked them to do that for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so all of the things that play the part that I have in this is, what do I do with that information? Do I want to
Mm-hmm.
move forward? Do I want to grow? Do I want to sit in anger? Chances are that's not why we came here. My thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to think that we come here to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to do that, how do we do that? Do we sit in anger? Do we judge? Do we sit in that judgment? Because we're going to judge. That's human.
Mm-hmm.
But do we stay in that judgment, or do we go, oh, interesting that reaction I had, and move forward from there? Are we self-aware? Are we willing to look at the things that are happening in our lives?
Mm-hmm.
That's the control, for lack of a better word,
Mm-hmm.
that we have
Mm-hmm.
in this life. And so, what are we doing while we're here? And that's the important part, I
Mm-hmm.
think,
Mm-hmm.
I believe.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Doing the QHHT stuff, it's been interesting. So I finally finished all my 25 people. One of the people, this is what's making me what your statement's kind of making me think of. One of the people had like a heart condition that she had. And she, at a certain part of the session, after we do the regression, or they go wherever their subconscious mind takes them, the superconscious mind takes them, and they get what they're supposed to get. They have the patient, or the client usually has a bunch of questions and stuff, and it can be anything to do with like this life, relationship, purpose in life, or anything that's going on physically within their body. They can ask about, and ask for healing too, if it's
Mhm.
appropriate. Well, this one woman, one of the things that she had asked for is a certain heart condition that she had, and she asked if she could have that healed. And you want to know what the superconscious said?
No?
It actually said no. And it said no because it would clear up if she stopped behaving and doing the things that are creating it. And then, so I asked, of course, asked the follow-up question, well, can you tell her so she knows very clearly what are the things that you want her to stop doing? So it gave like a list of things that she is currently doing in her life that she needs to stop doing, and then also said she knows all of this. And the funny part of this is it's not like some entity that's speaking outside of her. It's coming through her. It's in her own voice, and it gets recorded, and they get to listen to the recording afterwards, so she will hear in her own voice coming out of her own mouth, no, I'm not going to just heal this for you. You have to do these things and it'll clear up. It's what you're creating is creating that. I haven't had everybody do that. Some people it'll just clear up, and the super conscious will say you should do this to follow up to help it happen. But this person was like the only person out of the 25 that was like, nope, not doing it.
Nope, because you already know what to do and you're not doing it. So
You're
no,
not
we're not
doing
just
it.
going to clear it up for you.
Yeah, learn the
Mm.
lesson, right? So there's sometimes it's that, and I know for my husband too, that his eye condition, and we've been to, like, we go to Joe Dispenza things, we go to a lot of different things, and so people there are always there to heal,
Hmm.
and so they assume he's there to heal his blindness, or someone will come up to him on the street, let me pray for you and heal your blindness. But he really believes that he has that. I know we've talked about that he has it because this is how he's getting his lessons, right?
Hmm.
And he's learning a lot, that you don't always need to have your vision to be a productive human being.
Well, that's obvious.
Yeah.
An amazing inventor, this
Yeah.
business that's growing from it.
Yeah. It
But
doesn't mean
yes,
that
the
it didn't.
lessons.
Yeah, it took him a while to find that.
Hmm.
But he had to totally get into acceptance of his condition. He had to stop fighting with himself, and he still fights with himself, because hey, we all fight with ourselves, don't we? you know
Hmm.
that's how very human of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is exactly that. What are we doing here? And knowing the things, the thinking. and knowing the things, the feeling are two
Yeah.
very different things.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a number of light bulb moments lately that are the felt experience of the things that
Mm-hmm.
went, oh, and then that shifts everything. Because your brain knowing something doesn't necessarily mean that you get it.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so when
So
you get
true.
the felt experience of that, oh, that I knew that, but now I know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is completely different.
Yeah. And then it becomes a lived experience, right? So, like I was telling you, I had some patients that, some intensive patients over the last couple of weeks. And I just actually got an email from one of them this morning. She just got back to life, she flew back she was from Sweden. So she flew back to Sweden. I think it was today's Monday, so yesterday. So it's literally, she hasn't been there that long.
Hmm.
And she was just kind of telling me how much of a shift her life happened once we freed up the energy. She had a couple of things stuck in life that just weren't moving. One of which was she was doing some class and there was a certificate. There's a woman that was just holding everything up. And she just needed this certificate so that she could move on. And the woman was just making her jump through all these hoops. Right. And she just kind of voiced that as like a frustration of hers. Right.
Hmm.
Well, she's no sooner back home. She has a certificate in in her mailbox. So it cleared up while she was here, while she was doing her work, while she was opening things up. And then there was another issue with attracting somebody into her life and how she met this person. It was just like the most magical thing. And it was, someone that she met here, and it turned out needed a ride to the airport, and they ended up having dinner down there, and their gates were like right next to each other. So they got to hang out and get to know each other. And
Hmm.
it was just like this thing, like an attraction across a room sort of thing, that
Hmm.
she didn't approach it. She's like, I'm not chasing it. That her habit was always chasing after people. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to let that person come to me. And it unfolded just as she was leaving town to go
Hmm.
back home. And I thought, yeah, it's like what I saw was like, you just freed up your energy enough. You got your mind out of the way, you get your body out of the way, and now you're just letting things happen. And that's being in the flow. It's when we get out of the flow of love, right? We create the blocks. We stop the process of things happening.
And
And
mostly because we're in fear, right?
yeah,
We're in fear.
fear's a huge factor,
It
right?
really is. And it's
Yeah.
so ingrained in us.
Yeah.
And so being able to step out of that does take practice.
Yeah. One of the things that I tell people too is when they come here and they open things up, they can make a lot of changes really fast because they're getting them on the physical level,
Hmm.
and we're letting patterns go. So we're letting them go energetically as well. And I always say it's like the go and sin no more part of the program, because if you go back home and you go back to doing the things the way you always do them,
Hmm.
you're going to create the same thing again.
Yeah.
So you have to be very mindful of walking a new walk. That's what I call it. You're walking a new walk. So your body will move differently, you'll think differently. But then what's going to happen at some point is you're going to go, uh-oh, did I do something wrong? Am I in trouble? Do you know that feeling like, oh, I'm getting in trouble for something? Yeah, that's where you have to slow yourself down and go, nope, I'm not in trouble. I just made a change. And the change is so big that it makes me feel like I just
Mhm.
did something wrong. That's your system program trying to let you know that, hey, you're out of the program now. You're
Hmm.
doing something different. So I always say, when you feel that, keep going because you're doing it right.
Absolutely.
You're shifting out of it. So that's the physical part. That's meant to keep you in lockdown, right?
Yeah. And I like to get people to do the check-in, like have people disappeared in your life? Have, people been talking to you differently? Have
Mm-hmm.
you not wanted to do things that do those check-ins to see if you're still falling into the patterns or, oh,
Yeah.
oh no, like, And not in a bad way, like that certain people aren't talking to you or you're not doing things, but because things have shifted.
Yeah.
Things are different now. You're different now.
Yep.
And so just checking in and acknowledging those changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny because, like, one of the things I know that I've experienced, if you want to change something really, like, really fast, just come into, like, I always say come into your studio and do this, but like go anywhere. Like if you work at a desk, change your desk around. Just do something really small, but make a big change in within that small space.
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice something different happening because you're shifting energy. Because when you have, like, think of feng shui,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have things set up a certain way and they're just there. It's almost like static, stagnant energy. And then all of a sudden you make a conscious choice to, even if, one time I just moved one thing on my desk and I put it away, right? That's why we clear space, right? This is why we get rid of stuff in our closets that we haven't seen or wore or in a long, long time, because it's taking up energetic space. It's blocking flow. So you want to change something in your life really fast, just clean out a closet or move something on your desk, or it can be really simple. It doesn't have to be this big, huge, like, oh, right?
Yes. Yes. That's what I need an office. I used to change my furniture around all the time,
Yeah.
right? It was a constant for me. And it was that energy shift that was
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
When you
Because you
live with
have to.
someone who doesn't like change, it's a little harder. So you have to do it in your own space. But yes.
Yeah. But when
Yeah.
you think about that too, like especially moving furniture, like in a room, you have to move, you actually have to move differently in that space. So
Hmm.
because you're moving differently in that space, your your brain is working differently too. Your thoughts are going to be different. So what your energy is going to shift. So you're going to attract something to you that maybe it will be a big surprise, or it'll be that thing like, oh my gosh, it's finally here. I don't know what it was. But I think just play with that idea.
Yeah. I
Play
love
with
it.
that
I
idea.
love it. All right, everybody, go and move one piece of furniture. Just one thing. Go move it.
Go move it. Yep. Go
See
move
what
it. What
happens.
can I
See what
move?
happens.
Yeah. Or think about the thing in your life that maybe you're trying to bring into your world, something you're trying to bring into your world. And once you get it, just go, okay, got it. And then just ask that thing, not so much what's in my way, or what is one thing in my life that I can move to make room for this thing coming in. Like, see it coming in and just see what needs to shift, and then do that thing and then see what happens. And then all of you come back here and let us know what happened.
Yeah, share with us what happened. And I was just like, we asked a question in our email today, and then I forgot about it. And then I was like, wait, what did we ask? And so went to look for our email.
What did we ask? Did we ask something?
Oh, yes. Oh, look, let's drop into a collective energy of love, connection, and presence.
Hmm.
I love that because what did we end up talking about?
Yeah.
Um, now I'm like, me, ADHD brain, just like, which I'm trying to stop myself from connecting with, right?
Hmm.
So this is something that I do. Oh, that's my ADHD, or oh, I'm so forgetful, or oh, and that just brings that more. And I know that. I know
Hmm.
that. And yet I still do it. So I would like to stop. No, I am stopping. I am
Hmm.
stopping that. Like to is always in the future.
Yeah.
Putting energy into remembering things,
Yeah.
being focused on things.
Here's something that I just started doing, like literally just started doing probably about a week ago. Instead of, because I know I was catching myself saying, like, oh, I gotta do this thing, or I have to do this, or like, yeah, when I get home from this awesome walk, I have to like write my to-do list.
Hmm.
And then I just like, I just something dropped in and went like, what if I just said, like, I'm loving doing this, you know, instead of saying I have to do this, or, whatever, you know, I love to do this. I love to go home after this walk and write an email to this person, or I love to, create this other thing, or, whatever, post a thing, right? Whatever moves my ball forward a little bit, right? That maybe feels a little heavy, but it has been changing how I feel about something. So when you change how you feel about something, guess what you're doing, right? You're changing the energy of how you're
Mm-hmm.
interacting with that thing. And so, and if I really don't feel like I love that thing that I think I'm supposed to have to do, then it causes me to think about that. Like, do I really have to do it that way? Is that the thing that is this the thing that's going to be in service to that? And I think that's how we create, or at least that's what I'm seeing, how we create a life we love. Because if I'm going, I love doing this thing, I love doing this thing. Well, it's in my life, I love it. But if I'm going like, oh, I have to do this thing, well, that's not congruent with a life that I love, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And how many of us do that, right? On a regular basis, go to a
Yeah.
job we don't like, going to a family gathering that we don't want to go to, a meeting we don't like, all the things. How is
Mhm.
that creating the life we love?
Right.
And
Right.
sometimes it's doing the scary things that allow us to live the life we love.
Yeah.
But it's also paying attention, being in awareness. If we don't love this and we can't shift the energy around it, then maybe
Mhm.
we shouldn't be doing it.
Right. Because if it's always creating fear, maybe it's not something meant for you, and your system is warning you. I mean, I think only the person on the inside is really going to know that, you know. And I know, I mean, I too have fears of certain things, and I've done a lot to get over it. And some of them was, yep, it's just a fear. And it was just something I needed to move through as a process of growth, of transformation for me. And other things is like the body, the mind, the soul, you got to be in contact with all of it. Because a lot of times you can't trust everything your body's saying when it's in fear, because it's operating off of a past
Hmm.
program, trauma, whatever that hasn't cleared yet. And maybe the action is the thing that, your soul is wanting you to take because it's going to clear that trauma, is going to prove something wrong, prove your body wrong, right? So you can't always listen to that. You can't always listen to the emotions or the feelings, because sometimes that filter is a little clogged, you know. And so
Hmm.
it's all of, you have to pay attention to all of it, you know. um because I do think that, like, even when you're doing muscle testing, your body could be giving you a false signal, a signal based off of the past, a past experience.
Yeah. And often because we store those things in our body, that's exactly what's happening, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what's happening. I just found it. So the suggestion today between now and the reading of the email, hopefully you read it, and then today's live, just be in presence of what you are feeling and what images, patterns, feelings, and thoughts you're experiencing and share them with us. Did anybody
Mm,
do that? And I had forgotten that that's what it was.
yeah.
But this morning when I was writing email, thank you. Deb actually writes all our emails, just so you know, because
Sure.
I
Why
get
should Larissa have to do it too?
that's so then I'm just like, oh yeah, that's good words because first I was stealing them and then now she just gives them to me because then I don't have to. She's always ahead of me. I am such a last minute person. So I'm always like, oh yeah, I'll get to that. I'll get to that. And you've got it all planned out. So
Yeah.
um, it's,
This
so
is why
did
we work
anybody,
together, work well together.
we do, we do. Did anybody actually, not actually, did anybody pay attention to what they were experiencing, what they were sensing? This is something we go through life just totally unaware of what's going on. A lot of times in complete oblivion. And I know that I'm guilty of this,
Mhm,
especially if I have to go out in the world. And it's like I just shut everything down and do what I need to do. I'm
mhm.
much more in tune when I'm in my home. But
Yeah.
if I'm out in the world, I tend to shut things down.
That's protection too. Like
Hmm.
when you're a sensitive person, and I do it too, but I think I do it now. Like I'm okay with, I don't want to go into a grocery store and take on all the garbage that's out there, first of all.
Yep.
And I also don't want to know I just don't want to hear or know what's going on there. I'm there for a
So
purpose,
many
which is
things I
to
end
do
up
my,
knowing, and it's like,
right.
oh,
Wow, I can't unsee that. Can't unknow that.
and it's gotten to the point where I do. It's just like I almost like blinders on, because
Yeah,
if I stop too too long, someone will come to me, or I'll get a sense of something, and then I
yeah,
have to take action. I don't want to take action for
yeah,
somebody else, right? An
right.
incident, or I live in a neighborhood. I live downtown, so we have a lot of homeless people, and so I can't just let people, not have. And so then I end up talking, and then oh, do you need a sandwich? And all of those things happen. So if I can just go with blinders on, but also then people, if I'm standing in a line, will come and tell me their life story.
Hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that I needed to know that, but obviously I did.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I tend to shut down more when I'm out in the world.
Yeah. And I think that's just learned, and I think that's a fine thing to do. It's the world can be very noisy for a sensitive person. And, we I think too, like that, I think that's just a healthy boundary to have, honestly.
Good. Good. I'm
Yeah,
healthy.
I think that's a healthy boundary because, I think some of the problems when we're empathic, I think, when I always looked at being an empath as being a really good thing because it's how I do my work.
Hmm.
It's what allows me to feel deeply and to support another person as they're going through something. Cause I sometimes can feel it in my body where they're having a hard time connecting with it, so I can support, kind of be the bridge uh, to that. And I know enough too that it's not mine, and I know how to clear it out of my system because it's not
Hmm.
mine, you know. And if it's like I have that too, then I know, okay, I got to do a little bit more work because it got triggered to the point where I'm still feeling it even a couple of days later, right?
Yep.
After doing my clearing and stuff. But I think being an empath gets a bad rap because we're not taught how to do that. We're little, and I think most of us are empathic as little ones because we don't have that sense of separation. Our brain hasn't developed yet to know,
We
like,
haven't been
that's
taught
you.
not to.
Yeah, that's you, that's me, that's mine, that's not yours. I nobody takes responsibility. Everything is like, as a little kid, you're just thinking everything's because of me, and no one's clearing that up for you. No, 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 dear, that's not yours.
Yeah.
Mommy's angry because mommy's angry. It wasn't because of you.
Hmm.
It's we take on the responsibility, and it becomes too heavy, and then we don't know how to move that through our system because we also don't teach that either. And you know, so then we end up with all these health problems, and blame being an empath. And it's a huge gift to be able to cultivate that within yourself, and because you can connect with people on a very deep level. But then you also, as an empath too, you have to know that you can't be a codependent empath, right? You can't go to
Hmm.
the grocery store and take on the weight of the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Need to
and
be able
and
to
people
shut it
love
off.
to, and if you're willing to be the sponge, people are willing to give you their stuff. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was
yeah.
a thing that used to happen a lot. Now
Yeah.
it's, sometimes I still get like, oh, obviously I was not fully shielded there, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Most of the time I can just get in, get out, and I'll keep it for when I want to turn it on. And I think I think it was you. I know we're at time, but
Yeah.
this just made me think of like people, spirits that come to visit me, and I would get so annoyed because it was like, I don't have time for this right now. And I don't remember if it was you. Somebody told me to just set appointments, right? And so you can come and visit me during certain times. And oh my
Might have
goodness,
been
that
me.
worked. I'm
That
pretty
sounds
sure
like
it was
something I
you,
would have
but
said.
and so that really did work. And so
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, there's like a check-in now. And it's because I just left the door wide open, right? I left the door wide open and everything was coming at me all the time. Well,
Yeah.
just even putting that parameter in place was like, okay, I have choices in this.
Yeah.
I don't, and so then I can choose, which I do with my clients, right? To be
Yeah.
involved and be able to see into what they're feeling, be able to feel into it as well.
Yeah.
And that's totally different than just things coming at me. And it's like, go away. It's like swatting flies. Just go. Just It's
So
much
funny.
different. But
Yeah.
we are at time, so I do want to be cognizant of the
Yeah. And you
people who
see,
are watching.
Carol Simus said, enjoy and love the chore, the chore. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to see Carol's name up there and
Thank you
sending
for
her a
chiming in
hello,
as well.
chiming in. Yep.
And
So yeah, so quickly, what do you have going on? What's coming up?
oh my goodness, we're just days away, days away. We've been on this 8 month journey of transitioning from one platform to another and combining two businesses and rebranding.
Hmm.
We are days away from being done. Heart Centered Academy we're on System IO. We just have a few more people to move over and it will be official.
Hallelujah,
It has
right?
been a long 8 months. It was supposed
Yeah.
to be 2 weeks, and then it was supposed to be 2 months, and now it's been 8. There was so many
Well,
lessons in it, though. So many lessons.
that's awesome. Well, I'm happy for you. I'm glad it's coming to its place of being.
Me too. And what's going on with you? Because you've been having all sorts of people visiting, and
Yeah, yeah. So I what's coming through is a program of and I'm working on it currently. It's going to be called Release Your Medicine. And so it's going to be a program that I'm going to kind of blend online and in person, and for people who um, are healers, or it's mostly healers, and they want to do it in a creative way. They want to do work more energetically, and they want to have that confidence to connect with their clients and patients in a way that helps them to release too. So I'm still working on all the details, but it's going to be quite an amazing initiatory process in there. And then I'm going to be on a summit in a couple of weeks, the In Story show.
oh
So
yes, yes.
so that's going to be
Talked to you after you recorded. You're right. Yeah,
mid-November. That's coming out. And yeah,
I
other
was
than
on it
that,
last year, so go and watch
yeah,
the recordings from last year, and then watch the recordings from this year.
yeah, there you
Yeah,
go. Lots of
yeah.
good stuff on that one too, she was telling me.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And as always, leave comments. We'll have Deb's got some new links that we're going to put up because
Thank you.
I haven't been putting the new links up. I
Well,
don't
I
remember
haven't
if
been
you sent them
sending
to
them
me, but I
either.
got them
So
today. So, um, there's
I
been a
just
few
really
things
sent them
going on.
today.
So, yes, we will do that. But thank you everyone. And